CYC is a free channel, presents the Word of God for everyone. Your support will help us to continue the mission. Visit our website, cycnow.com. Even $1 will make a difference.
Hello and welcome to your program called Hyperlink, where we address the youth on many issues concerning them and answer questions that their parents are unable to discuss with them. In our previous episodes, we discussed the issue of Christian dating. Today we will answer questions relating to teen discipline. But first, as we have been doing in every episode, is go and see the opinions of the youth and their parents on this topic.
You can approach it with an open mind. Open mind is a very, very big thing with discipline. You can't expect someone to know something at such a young age that you know as an adult. Growing up with our culture and our religion, sometimes our parents want us to grow up faster than usual or understand something without actually having gone through the experience, which can be really difficult. So always remember to have an open mind with your kids and know when to punish or when to reward. If they do something positive, you need to reward it so they can see that just as much as they get negative for, punishment for their negative behavior, they're getting positive for, their good behavior.
Thank you for participating with us today. Now let's go and answer your first question.
Can you please, Abuna, explain how can I discipline my teenagers without overdoing it and hurting their feelings? Thanks.
Discipline can be one of the hardest jobs parents have to do. Using active discipline techniques can lead to positive character traits in our teenagers, which will guide them to becoming happy young adults. We were all at one stage of our lives were disciplined by our parents or older siblings at our homes and learned how to discipline our children accordingly. But there is a logical technique that we should follow when using discipline. Let me explain to you how discipline works. When dealing with disciplining your teenager, there are two types of consequences that you'll need to be concerned with: natural and logical. And both of these types can be either positive or negative. To help you get a handle of what each type means, I'll define them and give both a positive and negative example. Let's look at the first one. Natural consequences occur naturally, hence the name. They are not controlled by or manipulated by anyone. For example, when you plant a flower in your garden and take care of it, it grows. That is a positive example of natural consequences. But when you put your finger in an electric socket, you get a shock. That is an example of a negative natural consequences. Okay, so you get the idea now? Now let's take a look at logical consequences. And they are situations engineered by the person in authority. And they are logically connected to the wrong. It is logical because it fits the offense. For example, if your youth breaks curfew, he or she isn't allowed out the next night. Or if he or she doesn't eat dinner, he or she doesn't get dessert. These are examples of negative logical consequences. On the other hand, setting up a reward system for good grades and giving the reward when the grade is obtained is an example of a positive logical consequence. So how do you as a parent decide between natural and logical consequences? When parents want their children to learn from their mistakes, they have the choice of allowing the child to deal with the natural consequences or set up logical consequences. But how do you choose between the two types of consequences? And when is one more effective than the other? Let's take a look. When natural consequences are immediate, they are very effective. If your youth touches a hot pot, he or she will get burned and is not likely to do that again. Many times, however, natural consequences are not immediate or are too dangerous to allow. Running into the street without looking does not always have immediate consequences. Either does not wearing a seatbelt when driving. Both actions, though, could have dire natural consequences that no one wants. Therefore, the natural consequences aren't what a parent should use to teach their youth the responsibility of their own safety, and it is up to the parents to sort out a logical consequence that will promote the desired behavior. In this instance, not running into the street without looking or wearing a seatbelt. Another instance of when logical consequences will be more effective than natural consequences is while your youth is getting a high school education. The benefits of good grades in school are so far off into the future that teens do not fully comprehend them. While your teen can repeat what he or she has been told, good grades will get you into a good college and you'll make more money until he or she sees the type of job or paycheck a college education can get. He or she will not understand the differences. Logical consequences, including rewards for good grades and privileges taken for poor grades, work best as your youth can fully understand these. So discipline choices are never easy. Hopefully knowing the differences between natural and logical consequences will help you make the right choices for you and your youth. I hope you understood what I just said. Let's move on to the next question.
I don't have control of my children, and trying to disciplining them is very hard or near to possible. Are there any effective ways to deal with their absurd behavior instead of punishment?
Your 8-year-old refuses to put away her toys. Your 11-year-old isn't turning in his homework on time. Your 14-year-old has come home late for a third time in a row. How would you handle these situations? One of the biggest challenges in raising children is providing proper discipline. What do you think of when you think of discipline? Is it about punishing a child to make her behave? Or is it about teaching proper behavior? Punishment, which sometimes comes in the form of a name-calling, isolating a child, or using physical force, may give you immediate results, but is often ineffective and too harsh. These actions don't really teach anyone anything about appropriate behavior, and too much punishment can harm a child's self-esteem. It can even make her afraid of you as a parent or guardian. Is this really helping? Does it prevent future misbehavior? Discipline is about teaching children appropriate behavior and helping them become independent and responsible people. A key part of growing up is learning how to deal with the results of one's actions. Here are some ways to encourage appropriate and responsible behavior. Give opposite attention for desired behavior. What do I mean by that? If your child comes home on time, thank him for doing so. We don't usually do that. The other point is, help children express their feelings and communicate. If your child is hitting her sister, talk to her to find out where the anger is coming from and discuss other options to release it. The problem with that is parents don't have time to ask their children this question. Give time. Another point is, let children make choices when appropriate. Instead of handing your child a list of chores, take a list, sit down with him and decide together which chores will be his responsibility. Another point is, help your child see that choices have consequences. When your child chooses to stay up late to watch television on a school night, the next day she will realize how tired she is. Another point is, act as a model of the appropriate behavior. If you're about to lose your temper, remember to count to 10 before speaking. This will remind your child to do the same and handle conflicts in a calm, rational manner. Using the discipline methods just mentioned can provide a child with several benefits. Let's move on to our next question.
How can I discipline my teenager with firmness and at the same time be fair?
It is simply you, the parent, creating a discipline plan for your child that is fair to both of you and sticking to it using a firm approach. Here are 3 reasons why you should. Fair and firm discipline teaches respect for adults and those in authority. Youth that do not have any, little or the wrong type of discipline in the home often are those who get into trouble at school and or with the law. So basically it starts from within your own home where they spend most of their time, not from the school or from the church or Sunday school. Another point is, fair and firm discipline allows your youth to feel safe. When you set clear expectations and limits, you are showing your youth the safe route through the maze of do's and don'ts in their daily lives. You are giving them a map to follow where they get to make choices for themselves. This is very safe feeling and helps with building confidence. Older youths will eventually learn how to set their own expectations and limits when you follow this type of discipline. Another point is, fair and firm discipline allows your youth to take responsibility for his or her actions. When your youth understands the rules and consequences and knows that he or she is expecting to follow the rule, then he or she is ready and often willing to take consequences, whether they are positive or negative. This means you will have to remember to praise your youth's good behavior as well as stand by the consequences you have set for poor behavior. Let's go on to another question.
What does the Bible say about disciplining children?
How to best discipline children can be a difficult task to learn, but it is crucially important. Some claim that physical discipline, corporal punishment, such as spanking, is the only method the Bible supports. Others insist that timeouts and other punishments that do not involve physical discipline are far more effective. What does the Bible say? The Bible teaches that physical discipline is appropriate, beneficial, and necessary. Do not misunderstand me. We are by no means advocating child abuse. A child should never be disciplined physically to the extent that it causes actual physical damage. So don't hit them on the head where it can damage, but a small spanking on their hands should get the message to them. Many scriptures do, in fact, promote physical discipline. Solomon the Wise says, "Do not withhold correction from a child, for if you beat him with a rod, he will not die. You shall beat him with a rod and deliver his soul from hell." The purpose of spanking is not to cause any lasting bodily harm, but to cause spiritual correction. A spanking should be swift and cause short-lived pains that makes a point. That point is that the small pain they feel now will prevent them from feeling great pain by the act they are committing, which could cause them loss of their lives in some cases. For instance, if a child tries to run across the street, they could be run over and killed. Some people say that all spanking is child abuse, but this is totally wrong. The real abuse to the child is not to spank them when they need correction. Of course, some parents who themselves are out of control can abuse their children by beating them in angry rages. This is child abuse. They have no love. These kinds of homes need the love of Christ so that the whole family can be healed. We are not to spank our children with uncontrolled anger and thus hand out unjust punishment. Proverbs 19:18 says, "Chasten your son while there is hope, and do not set your heart on his destruction." Proverbs 22:6 says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." The Bible strongly stresses the importance of discipline. It is something we must all have in order to be productive people, and it is much more easily learned when we are young. Children who are not disciplined often grow up rebellious and have no respect for authority, and as a result find it difficult to willingly obey and follow God. God Himself uses discipline to correct us and lead us down the right path and to encourage repentance for our wrong actions. Let's move on to the next question.
Can other forms of discipline, such as timeouts, be used instead of physical discipline?
Some parents find that their children do not respond well to physical discipline. Some parents find that timeouts, grounding, and/or taking something away from the children is more effective in encouraging behavioral change. If that is indeed the case, by all means, a parent should employ the methods that best produce the needed behavioral change. While the Bible undeniably advocates physical discipline, the Bible is more concerned with the goal of building godly character than it is in the precise method used to produce that goal. We shouldn't forget St. Paul's message to the Ephesians. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with you and you may live long on the earth. And you, fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord. Let's now go and see what our early church fathers say about discipline. Let's look at some examples of how our early church fathers lived a life of strict discipline to win the eternal life. From the book of the Hermit Fathers are humans just like us who eat, drink, and sleep, but they live in complete discipline and self-denial of all bodily pleasures and comfort. St. Timothy the anchorite. It was said that he was born of God-loving parents who educated and raised him according to the church disciplines, who then desired the monastic life and became a monk in one of the monasteries. St. Peter the priest, this father spent his life in fasting. He shut himself in and was disciplined in praying days and nights. The Lord granted him the gift of knowing the future, healing the sick through the water and oil after praying over them. Pope Matthäus III, the 100th Patriarch, the Christian parents disciplined him with every spiritual discipline and taught him the Holy Church books. The grace of God filled this blessed son, so he devoted himself to study and teach Christian education. So you see, discipline starts from your very own home, and you eventually grow into it and live by it. Let's move on to our story on discipline. I worked at menial jobs. I had limited education, limited skills, and a limited future. And then I began asking, why are some people more successful than others? This question changed my life. Over the years, I have read thousands of books and articles on the subjects of success and achievement. It seems that the reasons for these accomplishments have been discussed and written about for more than 2,000 years in every conceivable way. One quality that most philosophers, teachers, and experts agree on is the importance of self-discipline. As Al Tomsic summarized it years ago, success is tons of discipline. Some years ago, I attended a conference in Washington. It was a lunch break and I was eating at a nearby food fair. The area was crowded and I sat down at the last open table by myself, even though it was a table for four. A few minutes later, an old gentleman and a younger woman, who was his assistant, came along carrying trays of food, obviously looking for a place to sit. With plenty of room at my table, I immediately arose and invited the older gentleman to join me. He was hesitant, but I insisted. Finally, thanking me as he sat down, we began to chat over lunch. It turned out that his name was Coppermeyer. As it happened, I immediately knew who he was. He was a legend in the field of success and achievement. He had written 4 large books, each of which contained 250 success principles that he had derived from more than 50 years of research and study. I have read all 4 books from cover to cover more than once. After we had chatted for a while, I asked him the question that many people in this situation would ask. Of all the 1,000 success principles that you have discovered, which do you think is the most important? He smiled at me with a twinkle in his eye as if he had been asked this question many times and replied without hesitation, the most important success principle of all was stated by Thomas Huxley many years ago. He said, "Do what you should do, when you should do it, whether you feel like it or not." He went on to say, "There are 999 other success principles that I have found in my reading and experience, but without self-discipline, none of them work." Self-discipline is the key to personal greatness. It is the magic quality that opens all doors for you and makes everything else possible. With self-discipline, the average person can rise as far as fast as his talents and intelligence can take him. But without self-discipline, a person with every blessing of background, education, and opportunity will seldom rise above mediocrity. This is what made our great Pope Shenouda III a successful Christian leader and loved by many. So this concludes our episode for today on teenage discipline. I hope you benefited from this topic and that it will help our teenagers and their parents to think twice before entering into a situation which will cause any conflicts at home. Remember, with love from both sides and respect, all arguments will be resolved. See you in our next episode, where we will discuss the issue on criticizing. Meet us next week, and don't forget to tell your friends to join you. God bless you and keep safe.